And once again, I want to say greetings to each and every one of you, Aquaba, and welcome. Welcome to another round of the Conscious Wrestler Report here on LIB Radio, LIB TV, and on livinginblack.com. My name is Kedia Weather, aka the Conscious Wrestler. Weekday mornings, you and I get together live from 9 a.m. Pacific time. That is from 12 noon Eastern time. And that's 5 p.m. BST. We get together with you and we deal with culture, consciousness, historical perspectives. We deal with entertainment, economics, education, health, labor, law, politics, religion, family, conflict, future studies, all areas of human interactivity and development. Today's date is Tuesday. It is the ninth day of September. The year is 2025 in the Gregorian Western calendar. That's 6266 in the Kemetic calendar, to which we have realigned our cultural clock. Welcome to the 7th millennium. You have found your family in a peaceful place here on LIB Radio, LIB TV, here on livinginblack.com. And here's what we have on the table for today's study. I hope you find this to be compelling. Are you prepared for 2 world wars? Are you prepared for 2 world wars? Today on LIB Radio, in my recent book, I asked all of us to begin to prepare or rise up to prevent World Wars 5 and 6. Prepare for or rise up to prevent World Wars 5 and 6. It appears that my warning was too little, too late, and perhaps given to the wrong people. It appears my warning was too little, too late, and given to the wrong people. Now we are deep into World War V and getting scarily close to World War VI. I can reissue this warning today because I believe the conditions are such that many more of us can see the impending danger. What can we do? What will we do? That is the topic for today's discussion. Are you prepared for 2 world wars? Let's look at this. Let's begin to break this down systematically. In the book, Disaster Preparedness for World Wars 5 and 6, I introduced a lot of radical concepts. For one, let's get over World War III. The idea that World War III is pending, may happen. They've been saying that for 40 plus years. They've been saying that for over 70 years, 80 years now. World War III, pending, nuclear war. No, World War III came, and it still lingers. But World War III has pretty much passed. Standoff between the Soviet Union and the NATO bloc, that's pretty much passed. And was World War III global? Yes. Was World War III deadly? Yes. At least 21.5 million people dead in World War III. Was World War III, did it happen with nuclear explosions? Yes. There were many, many thousands of nuclear explosions during World War III. I think I had the number in the book. World War III, the number of nuclear explosions. United States had 1,054 nuclear tests. Russia, 715. France, 210. China, 45. United Kingdom, 45. Palestine, 6 tests. Not Palestine, Pakistan. Palestine is a non-nuclear, non-state. Pakistan tested 6 times. India, North Korea tested 6 times. India tested 3 times. Israel is believed to have conducted a test, at least one test, in the late 1970s. So were there nuclear bombs going off during World War III? Yes. People died all over the world. Across Africa, people died. South America, people died. Central America, people died. And then came and lingers World War IV, the global war against Islam. Think about it. The war against terrorists was really a war against Islam. Samuel P. Huntington said it in his book, The Clash of Civilizations and the Remaking of World Order. He said it in 1992 or 1996. And he predicted it in an article for Foreign Affairs magazine in 1992. So the global war of Islam against Islam. You and I do not ignore it. I hope not. But it has been a global war. The war against Islam in India, war against Islam in Pakistan, against Islam in Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, the war against Islam involving Israel with all of its neighbors, Jordan, Sudan, Sudan, yes, war against Islam, war against Islam in Somalia, the war against Islam in Lebanon. It's all over the world. The war against Islam in Libya. That was a global war, people. Lots and lots of people have died. That brings us up to World War V. What about the corporate takeover of housing in the United States? Excuse me. The corporate takeover of housing. First of all, the corporations took over the construction of housing and the financing of housing. They caused a global crisis in 2008. And guess what? We're right back at the edge of that 2008 global housing crisis again. Dang, how did y'all let that happen? We didn't take them out. Didn't neutralize them with prejudice. We should have. Should have returned things back to the day when a family wanted a house. They put together the money. They went out. They hired their neighbors or somehow convinced their neighbors to contribute, hired all their relatives, and they would put up a house in several months. But little by little, gradually over the course of decades, it all shifted. And now it is to the point that the homeowners can almost no longer exist. New families getting into homes. The median price of a home in the United States is well over $400,000. How did we let that happen? And now the corporations, which can print money out of thin air, the bankers, the corporations, they got a scheme going on. And according to their scheme, they are buying up all of the houses. And if you want a house, you got to go through them. Unless you're wealthy, unless you're rich, and few of us can buy a house outright. Very few of us. Intergenerational wealth, yeah, you might be able to, but boy, it's hard getting in that camp right now, isn't it? World Wars 5 and 6. It's not just the corporations owning your housing and extreme housing inflation. What about the inflation in food? I was going to do today's program, and I guess I'll do it very soon, looking at how inflation has impacted us all over the course of, let's say, the beginning of the century. What was the average cost of a loaf of bread? A dozen eggs for those of you who eat eggs. What was the cost of a gallon of gasoline at the beginning of this century? And what are they today? And how do we average that out year to year for inflation? I know one thing. The cost of food today compared to the cost of the same foodstuffs 4 years ago, 6 years ago, has dramatically changed. And so we're going to ask serious questions about this global war, which in my mind is the war of the corporations, the corporate infrastructure against us all. I talked about, here, let me just give you a brief review of this, because I personally think that this book, Disaster Preparedness for World Wars 5 and 6, personally, I think this is one of the most important books of our time. Unfortunately, only a relatively small handful of people are even aware that it exists, let alone read it. You have heard us talk about this book quite frequently on our Sunday program, The Mastermind. Key countries affected during World War IV. I'm backing up a little bit. World War IV. It began in Iran. 1953, the CIA-backed coup to overthrow the elected Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh. The Iran-Iraq War, with the United States supporting and arming Iraq. In the 1980s, various sanctions, particularly after the 1979 Islamic Revolution against the CIA MI6 supported dictator Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the Shah of Iran. And more recent, the war against Iran due to nuclear power concerns. Lebanon, war against Lebanon, 1948. 1981 to 1984, numerous assaults and occupations related to Lebanese resistance to Zionist disruptions across Western Asia. 2024, Israel bombs Lebanon multiple times, targeting Hezbollah fighters, their leadership, and Iranian diplomatic facilities. The war against Islam, the Algerian War, 1954 to 1962. And subsequent Algerian Civil War, 1992 to 2002, were primarily anti-colonial nationalist struggles. But France intervened as a former colonial power and disrupted everything. Iraq, war against Islam, 1991. Following Iraq's invasion of Kuwait, 2003, U.S.-led invasion to overthrow Saddam Hussein, weapons of mass destruction. Remember that? 1990s to 2000s, extensive sanctions and continuing occupation and bombings. Afghanistan, 1979 to 1989, the Soviet invasion, along with the U.S. supporting Mujahideen fighters. 2001 until present, at the time I wrote this book, U.S.-led invasion and occupation following the 9/11 attacks, of which Afghanistan had no provable association, but it was an effort to contain China, which was planning on building an oil pipeline through Afghanistan to Iran. For 2 decades, they supported the nation's puppet government under the regimes of Hamid Karzai and Ashraf Ghani, and then U.S. ignobly withdrew from Afghanistan and turned it over to the very forces that they fought for 2 decades. U.S. lost that war. Libya, 1986, U.S. bombing in response to alleged Libyan terrorism. 2011, a NATO-led coalition intervention during the Libyan civil war included Western Christian nations, France, UK, US, Canada, Italy, etc., targeting Libya and assassinating the leader of Libya. Syria, 2011 to the present. Somalia, 1992, 1993, 2007 to the present. The 1999 Kosovo War was largely led by Western Christian nations, UK, US, France, Germany, etc., launched airstrikes against Yugoslavia, but it still had a large contingent of Muslim population within the boundaries, and we do know about the genocide against the Muslims. Yemen, 2015 to the present. Pakistan, 2004 to the present. War against the Islamic States, ISIS, 2014, and so on. It goes on and on and on. And then, of course, October 3rd, 2014, 2015. So, is there a global war against Islam? Did I just describe it? Let's go on to World War VI. Because we have to look at this stuff, all of this warmongering in context. World War V, not World War VI, World War V. Confronting the dominating, dehumanizing global matrix. I have 2 quotes I open this chapter with. The first quote is from Frantz Fanon. 1 second here, and I'm just double checking to see. Do I have a listening audience with me today? Are you in the house? Are you listening? I hope you are. I really do hope you are paying attention. Because if we don't pay attention, then we just have to absorb all of this mess without preparation. And we have to absorb all this mess without preparation. I can guarantee you, we're all going to lose things that are very dear to us, except for, well, no, we're all going to lose. I have this quote, 2 quotes to open this chapter. The first from Frantz Fanon. It is the condition of the oppressed that their own actions must liberate them. It is the condition of the oppressed that their own actions must liberate them. And follow-up comment, quote, from Martin Luther King. We must rapidly begin to shift from a thing-orientated society to a person-oriented society. When machines and computers, profit motives and property rights are considered more important than people, the giant triplets of racism, materialism, and militarism are incapable of being conquered. Martin Luther King Jr. So let me introduce the first couple of pages. This is World War V, the war against the global matrix, the dehumanizing global matrix, meaning it's riding something up in its wake that is anti-human. A global elite versus the workers' middle class. I am an elder and a senior citizen with a long-established and proudly earned reputation as an effective investigative reporter and multimedia journalist. My years of investigation and reporting have covered a broad spectrum of societal transition and investigative inquiry concerns. The audience I have built up over the years is familiar with my designated status as a, quote, scientific futurist. Reaching this credential has required many years, even decades, of focused studies over various academic disciplines. Here is how I describe this field of study in my 2016 book, The Repairing. Quote, scientific futurism involves formal disciplines involving demographics, science and technology trends, economic patterns, geology and planetary resources, anthropology, sociology and culture, politics, environment and climate change, the humanities, alternative futures analysis, health and biology, as well as trends in education and industry. Scientific futurism requires the intellectual organizing of data patterns across this spectrum of disciplines with the aim of creating processes for traversing the future. To this list of academic disciplines, I now include game theory, the study of strategic decision making among multiple players, considering interdependent choices, outcomes, and payoffs, aiming to predict and analyze behavior in competitive or cooperative situations. In the latter part of this book, I will dedicate a chapter to the discipline of game theory. And going forward, the basic premise that I am proposing in this chapter of the book, World War V, Confronting the Dehumanizing Global Matrix, is the following. World War V is most simply described as a competition between two opposing camps. On one hand, the antagonists can be described as a collaboration of capitalism, globalism, the uber-rich caste hierarchy, and the world's most privileged elite. This collaboration has been referred to under numerous names over recent history, such as the New World Order, Deep State, the Illuminati, secret societies, global elite, shadow government, and Kabbalists, and as well as associated with organized groups like the Trilateral Commission, Council on Foreign Relations, Bilderberger Group, the World Economic Forum, the Davos Group. For the convenience of this chapter's analysis, I will refer to this collective as the global elite. I am convinced that this global elite is not respectful of life. Conversely, I associate multiple patterns by which the public has organized towards its self-interest. In lumping this opposition together, I conveniently refer to this collective as the workers' middle class. I use this terminology to assume and acknowledge that all right-thinking people want dignified employment that sustains a quality of life as a prospering middle class. Other terminology describing this group and its members would include the Marxist proletariat, medium income labor force, blue collar and white collar workers, middle income and salaried workers, working professionals, the middle tier, and a spectrum of non-manipulative small and medium-sized enterprises guided by a non-threatening petty bourgeoisie. One might reasonably ask what criteria I present to distinguish these two oppositional groups and the primary mechanisms to empower their interests. While such detailed distinguishing hallmarks might require an immense space to describe accurately, let's put forward the following. These are the hallmarks of the dehumanizing global elite. 1. Access to unlimited debt financing. 2. The concentrated economic power. 3. Elite education. 4. Exemption from criminal prosecution and social restrictions. 5. Global influence and transnational access. 6. Disproportionate media access. 7. Luxurious lifestyle. 8. Rigged political power and influence. And 9. Self-serving secret societies. The following are the hallmarks of the workers' middle class. Number 1, abandonment by government regulatory processes. 2, criminalization and condemnation for sovereign ambitions. 3, overwhelming debt burden. 4, an education system that creates rigid social and economic stratification. 5, a false notion of democracy as a supreme system of governance. 6, mass media's continuous and injurious manipulation. 7, mass theft of our organic hopes and dreams for the future. 8, programmed to be constantly reactive to psychological warfare manipulation. Number 9, restricted economic opportunities. Number 10, subject to industrial decline due to profit-driven motives. And 11, a victim of systemic class-based hierarchical containment. As you can easily determine by these two lists, comparing the global elite versus the workers' middle class characteristics, I am portraying these two camps as antagonists versus protagonists within a systematic process that one might call the real matrix, referring to, of course, the popular cinema series pitting a non-human and ubiquitous virtual reality mechanism, pitting that non-human ubiquitous virtual reality mechanism against the best hopes of free humans. Throughout this chapter, I share an extensive list of conflicts that have risen in recent decades, describing this conflict between the ultra-wealthy and the middle-class workers worldwide. These conflicts continue to unfold on a seasonal basis. I hope that you will see the patterns of their emergence and be able to detect this expanding global war in real time and make appropriate responses toward self-defense. And I'm not going to share all of these because there are a lot of these battle lines. There's a lot of these battle lines of World War V. But I will share a few. Let's say I'll share 5 of them. Number 1, anti-democratic political manipulation. Wealthy interests and PAC's political action committees influence policy to benefit themselves, leading to regressive taxation policies and deregulation. This exacerbates income inequality, forcing the working class to bear disproportionate debt service costs, such as student loans, credit card debt, and home mortgages. Number 2, climate manipulation and geoengineering. Weather manipulation often prioritizes military and corporate interests over public welfare, leading to environmental risks that disproportionately impact the middle class. Globalist elites hope to profit from technological solutions over sustainable natural solutions, while the middle class faces increased cost, health impacts, and displacement due to climate disasters. This conflict of interest exacerbates numerous social and economic inequalities. Number 3, culture wars. Wealthy elites leverage media to fuel culture wars, diverting attention from economic issues affecting the middle class, promoting divisive narratives, manipulates public discourse, fostering polarization, and distraction. This undermines social cohesion and collective action, ultimately hindering the middle class's ability to address pressing economic challenges and advocate for their interests. Number 4, currency access. Fiat-backed lending and usury favor the wealthy, allowing them less restricted access to capital lending and lower interest rates. This creates a constantly expanding disparity where the working class faces higher debt service costs due to less favorable lending terms. Consequently, this dynamic can lead to financial strain and hinder economic mobility for the middle class. And number 5, and there's, again, as I mentioned, there are a lot of these battle lines of World War V. A lot of them. Number 5, the elite sponsored sabotage. Sabotage disrupts essential services, damaging the economic stability and security of the middle class. It undermines public infrastructure, healthcare, and education, making it harder for middle-class individuals to access these necessities. The erosion of society's safety nets and public goods disproportionately affects the middle class, exacerbating income inequality and limiting economic mobility. And it goes on. I talk about the fourth industrial revolution, high-tech conflict and cyber attacks, population wars, propaganda, resource wars, sanctions, supply-side economics, trade wars, and much more. Some of the key mechanisms that constitute our determination of the existence of a global war that could be labeled as a Fifth World War include massive wealth disparities, a transnational state of conflict, numerous fault lines, friction points between the affluent elite and the middle class workers, and the often toxic and deadly assault on the lower economic class must endure. That the lower economic class must endure. The toxic, deadly toxic assault. So that is a brief synopsis of an extensive chapter in the book, and that is World War V. And I go on to break these down even further, much, much further. That brings us to World War VI. And I want to see, do I have any comments in the house at all today? I don't see anyone, no one at all is with us. And that's too bad. Because the fact of the matter is that without collaboration, cooperation, without preparation, we lose everything. We lose everything. And no one even hit the like button. One person other than myself hit the like button. So I'm going to quickly go through this next story. But we are on the verge of World War VI. Let me just briefly introduction what this World War VI is about. The rise of BRICS Plus, resistance to Western dominance. This quote from Raghuram Rajan, professor of finance, University of Chicago, writes, "The rise of BRICS Plus is a challenge to the existing global order, as it represents a coalition of nations that are ready to assert their interests on the world stage. I first talk about new orbits, alliances, and fault line conflicts. I don't necessarily want to read that right now because, okay, I do see you in the house, Stray Godzilla. Just sorry, I apologize. I didn't see you before, but my YouTube had thrown me an error code and it had locked up. So let me just say this. Stray Godzilla, is everything war? Neely Fuller explains we are born prisoners of war. Actually, I think that's backwards. We're born free, liberated, but we are guided into being quote unquote prisoners of war. I think you're backwards. He says also, yo, I'm here. Great to have you here, Stray Godzilla. Thank you for participating in today's conversation. Basu Nefer Ra Sabet is in the house. Uja Babakiti and LAB community worldwide. We are here and will be. And that's a good point you make. We are here and we will be. You may have heard, and you're hearing this more often, in the upcoming conflict that is being predicted between the West and the East, the NATO versus the BRICS Plus bloc, people are predicting that the only countries that will be exempt from direct nuclear assault are in the southern hemisphere. Now, over the course of the last 4 years or so, we have talked about this quite a bit, and we talked about the fact that out of one of the Davos Group summits, people, the wealthy, were emerging that summit and were beginning to build bolt holes, B-O-L-T holes. Let me just briefly describe what are these bolt holes that people were talking about building. What are bolt holes? Quote, bolt holes, and how do they relate to the uber wealthy and the World Economic Forum? There might be a bit of a stretch. Let's see what it says. What are bolt holes? Not bold, bolt holes. They caught it. Bolt holes, B-O-L-T holes, and the uber wealthy. Bolt holes referred to remote, secure hideaways, often luxurious properties or bunkers where the ultra-rich can retreat during times of crises such as pandemics, civil unrest, or economic collapse. These locations are typically, one, in politically stable countries, example given New Zealand or Switzerland. Two, equipped with off-grid energy, private security, and stockpiles of resources. And three, designed to ensure survival and comfort during global disruptions. The concept gained traction during COVID-19 and amid growing concerns about climate change, AI disruption, and geopolitical instability. Now, how is this connected to the World Economic Forum? Let's see here real quick. I'm just copying, cutting, and pasting all of this in my original document. Paste. Where we at? Paste it. And here we go. Connection to the World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum, held annually in Davos, Switzerland, brings together global elites to discuss economic, technological, and social challenges. Critics argue that the WEF promotes collaboration and sustainability. Some of its attendees, particularly billionaires and corporate leaders, prepare bolt holes as a form of personal contingency planning, reflecting a lack of faith in collective solutions. That's an interesting point because these collective solutions are said to be best involving these billionaires who obviously don't believe in their own solutions. This tension has fueled conspiracy theories and public skepticism, especially when paired with discussions around, quote, the Great Reset, unquote, a World Economic Forum initiative aimed at rethinking capitalism post-pandemic. So if you meant bolt holes, it may be a typo or slang version of bolt holes, which are very much part of the conversation around elite survivalism and global inequality. And that is exactly what I was referring to. So thank you for correcting that mistake. And that's what that's about. I want to go a little bit further into the book, not that deep into the book. I really do want you to read the book. How many have read the book? Let me just ask that question, even though I know the answer. How many have read my book, Disaster Preparedness? How many of you read it? And if you have read it, does it hold any credibility? I have to ask that. I'd love to hear from you, our listening audience. And we're going to do the best we can. We get a little disappointed sometimes because the fact of the matter is that people really are not prepared. People are not responsive. And because people are not prepared, because they're not responsive, there's something catastrophic coming. Let me read from the book, Keep Myself Occupied. Introducing the chapter. Once again, this is a very extensive chapter. It would be a whole book in itself. It begins on page 115 and it goes on to page 135. So it is 193. Not 135, 193. So it's almost a whole book in itself. In this chapter, we discuss first is orbits, alliances, and fault line conflicts. That takes us, first of all, we have to understand what these groups mean. What is BRICS? What is NATO? What is this showdown? The clash of civilizations? So let's go to page 119 to the header, the showdown. The West, NATO, versus BRICS plus resistance. In an open conflict, if an open conflict arose between the Western Christian North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, bloc, and the emerging Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa plus bloc, the countries involved and the challenges expressed would be significant and multifaceted. Here is a breakdown of various elements of such a conflict. Countries involved in the NATO bloc include, as of October 2023, NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, has 31 member countries from Europe and North America. They are Albania, Belgium, Bulgaria, Canada, Croatia, Czech Republic, Denmark, Estonia, France, Germany, Greece, Hungary, Iceland, Italy, Latvia, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Montenegro, Netherlands, North Macedonia, Norway, Poland, Portugal, Romania, Slovakia, Slovenia, Spain, Turkey, United Kingdom, United States, and Finland. As of that date, October 23rd, the BRICS Plus bloc included, but it has continued to expand since then. BRICS membership has expanded to include Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and the newly expanded membership includes Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and the United Arab Emirates. Additional countries that have expressed more than a passing interest in joining BRICS include Afghanistan, Argentina, Algeria, Bangladesh, Bolivia, Cuba, the Democratic Republic of the Congo DRC, Comoros, Gabon, Indonesia, Kazakhstan, Mexico, Nicaragua, Pakistan, Turkey, Venezuela, and Nigeria comes readily to mind. Vietnam as well. Over 40 countries have expressed interest in joining the rapidly expanding BRICS Plus alliance. These countries view BRICS as an alternative to global bodies dominated by Western powers and hope membership will unlock benefits such as development, finance, increased trade, and investment. As of the most recent revelations at the beginning of the third quarter of 2024, Turkey is considering exiting NATO and aligning itself completely with the BRICS Plus group. As of the most recent revelations at the beginning of the third quarter, Turkey hints that it wants to join NATO. That's a repeated paragraph. I have to get that out. Potential challenges and expressions of conflict, military confrontations, proxy wars. Similar to the quote-unquote Cold War, conflicts might occur in third-party countries where NATO and BRICS Plus support opposing sides. And of course, the Ukraine war is a classic example of just that. Proxy wars. Ukraine is a proxy of the West, and of course, Ukraine is assaulting, attacking Russia and Russian people inside of Ukraine. See, well, I'm not going to go into it. If you were listening to the program that I had on before going on the air today, you heard Scott Ritter dispelling many of the myths that are there. For one, the Ukraine war was going on long before Russia invaded. Russia, not invaded, but Russia stepped in this emergency. I can't remember what they call it. But the Russian-speaking people, the Russian culture inside Ukraine had been under military attack since 2012 or 2014. So I think it was 2014. They were under direct military assault. So, we've been lied to so much in the West. And I'm not calling Russia, I'm not saying Russia doesn't tell lies. Russia does lie. All major states do lie. But quite simply, if we look at the facts and the truth of the matter, the Ukraine war did not have to happen. It was the illegal overthrow of the Ukrainian elected government that began the crisis. Zelensky wasn't legitimately elected. You may believe it, but that's not necessarily true. Economic warfare, sanctions, and trade embargoes. Both blocs might impose economic sanctions on each other, affecting global trade and economies. Now we look at not only the sanctions against Russia were highly indicative that we had this war going on, but now look at Donald Trump's craziness. Tariffs and sanctions, he's just throwing them around like they're just New Orleans beads, street beads. Resource control. Competition over critical resources like oil, gas, and rare earth minerals could intensify. It has intensified just since the book came out. And the book came out just before the beginning of this year. Cyber warfare. Cyber attacks. Both sides could attack critical infrastructure, financial systems, and government networks. The NSO Group is an Israeli technology firm known for developing surveillance software, most notably the Pegasus spyware. Pegasus is designed to infiltrate mobile devices and allow operators to access messages, photos, and other sensitive information and activate microphones and cameras without the user's knowledge. The software has been controversial due to its use by various governments and organizations for surveillance purposes, raises significant concerns about privacy and human rights, and potential abuse. Numerous reports of Pegasus have been used to target journalists, activists, and political figures. Information warfare, propaganda, and misinformation campaigns to influence public opinion and destabilize governments, and especially fake videos. The issue, I think one of the biggest issues pressing at all of us right now is the proliferation of fake videos, clickbait on YouTube. People send me this stuff every day. Every day I get these fake videos, clickbait on YouTube. I did a show about it recently, and it keeps getting worse. Point number 4 of the conflict between BRICS Plus and NATO: diplomatic struggles, alliances and treaties, efforts to form or strengthen new partnerships, potentially drawing in non-aligned countries. The recent conference that took place just on the eve of the September 3rd military parade in China, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, that was a major alliance conversation. And we saw all these countries walking out, including 2 Bulgarian nations. They were there too. Not Bulgarian, 2. Bulgaria was one of 2 NATO partners that did attend the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting. I think it's called the Shanghai Cooperation Agreement. But you know what I'm talking about. International organizations, conflicts will emerge within existing bodies like the United Nations, the World Trade Organization, and others, as each bloc seeks to assert its influence. Humanitarian crises, refugee flows, conflicts could lead to large-scale displacement of people, creating refugee crises such as that created by the global war against Islam and the destruction of Libya. Human rights violations, increased military actions, and sanctions could exacerbate human rights abuses and humanitarian needs, and this is taking place inside the USA today, with ICE rounding up everybody they can, realizing that there were hundreds of non-documented immigrants from South Korea. Just there were over 400 of them arrested in the raid on the Georgia automobile plant, Hyundai. So where does it all end? And what impact on our cost of living does this ICE removal of a significant proportion of America's cheapest labor class, just what impact on the cost of food and the cost of living will that happen? It's disastrous. And that is human rights violations. The military inside deployed now. Donald Trump is talking about deploying the military to Chicago, after deploying the military to Los Angeles and deploying them to Washington, D.C. It's going to be crazy. Did you prepare for World Wars 5 and 6? World War 6, I'm describing now, this world war will be with fire and steel and lasers. Number 6, technological and space race. Technological dominance competition in microchips, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and biotechnology. All of these are hallmarks of a global war. Space exploration. Rivalries in space exploration and satellite technology could become more pronounced. Yeah, it has happened. And we've been describing all of it. This is why you tune into LIB radio regularly. And I am getting a little tired this morning. This is exhausting. Humanitarian crises, I talked about that. Tech and space race. Propaganda as weapon of psychological warfare. Nationalist propaganda has been employed as a tool of psychological warfare to influence the opinions, emotions, and behaviors of targeted groups, often to support national objectives. These might include strategic propaganda. Nationalist propaganda often operates strategically, targeting large audiences or entire territories, as seen in mass media, airborne leaflets, and other forms of broadcast communication. 2. Propaganda analysis. Propagandists analyze their own and competing propaganda to understand their effectiveness and adjust their strategies accordingly. 3. Intelligence functions. Psychological warfare is often accompanied by intelligence functions such as propaganda analysis and audience information to gather insights on the target audience and tailor the propaganda efforts. And propaganda is multifaceted. Nationalist propaganda can take various forms, including radio broadcasts, false flag events, the threat of chemical weapons or weapons of mass destruction, the notion of, quote, white supremacy, unquote, and the supremacy of Western science, as seen in historical examples. And historical examples of propaganda include, during World War II, German radio broadcasts such as those by Lord Haw Haw targeted British and American audiences with nationalist propaganda. Number 2, China's influence operations. China has invested heavily in shaping its national image and influencing international public opinion, often using nationalist propaganda to promote its interests. Military information support operations, MISO. Modern psychological warfare involves planned propaganda and other psychological operations to influence opposition groups, as studied by organizations like the RAND Corporation. HIV, AIDS, COVID-19, and other likely future pandemics, I contend contain an overwhelming amount of propaganda. And nationalist movements, the so-called green revolutions, are grassroots nationalist movements like those in China that also employ disruptive propaganda to promote foreign agendas, shape public opinion, and destabilize populations. According to the U.S. Department of Defense, psychological warfare is the planned use of propaganda and other psychological actions affecting the primary purpose of influencing the opinions, emotions, attitudes, and behavior of hostile foreign groups in such a way as to support the achievement of national objectives. So let me just close with a few of these confrontation scenarios from BRICS and NATO. And bear with me, I hope someone's talking. I do have Basu Randa is in the house. He says, I have not read your book yet. I am a participant in an emergency preparation group in my local area. And I also took that course, that training as well, Basu Randa. And that's a good training course. It really is. I can't remember what it's called. I used to have my books on it. I still do have the books on it. But it's neighborhood preparedness. And all of our neighborhoods should be prepared for emergency, localized emergency. I do completely agree. And thank you for being honest and admitting that you have not read the book. And Stray Godzilla, we see you in the house as well. I am running out of energy, as you can probably tell. Ed Mack, I see you in the house. Greetings, Brother Keaty. It's said that America is $37 trillion in debt. Who has and continues to loan America more money, as they have proven to be a paymaster over and over again and again? Well, that $37 trillion of debt is just the national debt, just the government debt. That does not include private debt. That national government debt is in the form of bonds. Countries traditionally have bought American bonds. Traditionally, they bought American bonds because American bonds were considered to be a very stable investment, and over the long run, they paid more than they cost. They paid more to the borrower than they cost. So the borrowers would then therefore spend their cash on buying bonds. The bond is further debt for America, of which America spent all of that money, and has no intention of ever zeroing out its bond debt. It cannot. It can only keep it growing. Thing about it is that people are now realizing America will never zero out its bond debts. In the short run, the bonds continue to turn over. But in the long run, it is an unsustainable system. I hope that you are not involved in it. That's a really good question, Ed. And I would love to have a guest. Maybe you would be my guest to discuss America's debt in depth. And what about this 37 trillion? He writes, I would hope America would not use its children's savings to make themselves more wealthy. Well, they did exactly that, Brother Ed. This debt, $37 trillion, it could never be paid off. This $37 trillion is approaching, I almost said includes, but it includes a number which is even greater than that, which America has no intention of ever paying. And that is the debt to African ancestors over the theft of our labor over the course of multiple generations. That's just from the beginning of America. I'm not going to roll over Britain's debt to the U.S., but from the beginning, the founding of the U.S. until the emancipation, the enslavement of 13.5 million people of African descent throughout the course of their lifetime, left a debt which at that time would have been equivalent to about $900,000 US per person, 13.5 million people. But for I tracked the interest on it at 5% interest. The interest was unpaid from 1865. The interest is still unpaid, so I tracked the interest all the way through to 2016 was the book. And so that unpaid interest made the $900,000, I may have said 900 million, $900,000 per person debt had expanded to $1.82 billion with 5% annual interest compounded. All of that came to $53.7 trillion. America has no intention ever of paying that reparations debt. No intention ever. Now, if you and I, as people of African ascent, if we determine that that debt is necessary for us to go forward and to forgive America and start from scratch, We're going to have to do one of two things: either take it or look for that money elsewhere. I have decided to look for that money elsewhere, and the African continent has more than that in untapped natural resources in the Democratic Republic of the Congo alone. I'm going to get my money in Africa, and I'm going to use that money to uplift the African children, the African people, generation after generation after generation. Invest in the mothers, invest in the children, invest in the future, invest in education, invest in healthcare, invest in technology, emerging technologies and development, invest in African peoples so that that investment can be made a permanent empowerment, just like China. From 1982 until now, China invested its return on investments back into the Chinese people. They eradicated poverty for over 40 million people. And the Chinese middle class is growing very rapidly. Most of the cars sold in the world are sold to China. EV production in China is overwhelming everyone else. China is doing it right. And now China has an extensive program to rehabilitate its military so that what they are building, no one will ever be able to take it away from China again. I love it. I personally think that is a model for which, by which, through which you and I, Brother Edel, can plan our future. And he asks further, Brother Keaty, should the U.S. be selling off 66 million acres of its farmlands while preparing for war? It's going to sell it to the corporations. So should it do so? No. But the corporations will own all of the farmland. The corporations now own more than half of all housing in the United States. And what they don't own outright, they may have the debt on that. It's a pretty messed up mess. I don't cuss, but Brother Ed L. Mac, that F word almost slipped in the middle of that sentence. It's a doggone mess. And it is getting much, much worse. It can't be blamed on Donald Trump. Nope. It existed under the previous administration and the previous administration. The concentration of wealth in the United States has been an ongoing active campaign, active program since the presidency of Ronald Reagan. The concentration of wealth continued after Reagan, Bush 1, Bush 2, after Clinton. Even though Clinton on the national debt did better, still the concentration of wealth was still in place. Under Obama, concentration of wealth. Remember Obama bailed out all of those bankers and all those corporations that caused the housing crisis of 2007, 2008? Obama bailed them out. The first thing they did with that bailout money was they put it in the hands of their corporate directors. They put it in the bank accounts of their corporate directors. They made love to us all. Not made love, but they screwed us all. They did. And they do. And it is non-partisan. There's only one thing we can do, but we're not prepared to do that. The only thing we can do is plan to exit. That's it. That's the only thing that we can do. But we're not doing it. So therefore, we're paralyzed. And in that paralysis, by doing nothing, we're locked in. Now, for one thing, none of my posts are going directly into YouTube from StreamYard. So it is what it is. But I can paste into the YouTube broadcast from YouTube. So what's happening with that? I want to thank you all for tuning in today. Are you prepared for 2 world wars simultaneously? The war against the corporations and a blazing hot war where the missiles are already flying in parts of Russia and Ukraine. Missiles are already flying in the Sudan. Missiles are flying across the African continent. They're threatening the Sahel states with war. Maybe Africans need to start building missiles. Personally, I am glad that Africans don't spend a huge amount of their monies on war and the instruments of war. But perhaps they should start. It's hard to say what we should do. Maybe we should just get in an alliance and turn over our strategic defense to Russia and to China, which African nations have been doing. Maybe we should just withhold trade in our rare minerals to any country which engages in any hostilities that we disagree with in the world. What do? We got a plan. We have to plan. And here, one second. Let me just show off my t-shirt and stretch my back. Just 15, 20 seconds gets the blood circulating again. You have been tuned into your favorite. We aim to be your favorite. We are LIB Radio, LIBTV. We are livinginblack.com. Get ready, get ready, get ready. We all see already. We see geopolitical tensions, arms race, arms buildup, threatening deployments, large-scale exercises near other rivals' borders, particularly in regions with existing conflicts. We're already seeing economic sanctions. That's an act of war. We're already seeing trade wars with these tariff wars, cyber warfare. Just this past week, revelations of cyber warfare taking place. We can already see cyber attacks on critical infrastructure and retaliatory attacks. Israel attacking its neighbors, and his neighbors retaliating against Israel. And don't you know, the longer those attacks and retaliations go on, the better becomes the ability of the emerging nations to develop better and better warfare. See, that's one thing. Israel's assault against Iran provoked Iran's military development, military hardware development. Now, Iran is producing some of the world's best drones. Turkey, another classic example. With Turkey, the threat against Turkey and Turkey's interests in Syria and in the whole area, Turkey now is developing a 5th generation fighter jet. And so it's just driving it all the wrong way. How is the global order shaping up for the 21st century? Today, we are forced to consider how the average working family might prepare for the next 2 global conflicts that we see arising. We have relied on government and media to describe global affairs, but now we present a different narrative regarding the history of these world wars. Using scientific futurism, we look over the horizon as we simultaneously examine the history of conflict from the 20th century forward. What can we do to protect ourselves? Disaster preparedness for world wars 5, and 6. That's the book I have in my hand. We've been reading from it today and speculating. The news is moving so rapidly, I could rewrite this book every month or issue new findings based upon this every month. I could do that, except for I don't have time. It's too expensive. And the research is too much for one person to do. So what we're going to do is wrap it up for today. It's been a good day. We got off to a great start today, and it's going to get even better. It's going to get even better. So all of you, I wish you peace, prosperity, and thank you all for tuning into your favorite. We aim to be your favorite. We are LIB Radio, LIB TV. We are truly, truly living in black.com. So I wish you peace and prosperity to each and every one of you. On your favorite, we aim to be your favorite. We are LIB Radio, LIB TV. We are living in black.com.
Around the Los Angeles area, but if you were stopped by ICE officers, you have constitutional rights, regardless of your immigration status. If you or someone you know has been detained or wants to report ICE, more information is available at Shirla at 4752 for legal help and resources. It is bilingual. More information at chirla.org.
90.7 FM, KPFK, Los Angeles.
The expansion plan with Tony Barrett. On the expansion zone, we examine life and our quest to understand who and what we are, and of the vastness of human potential. We explore the making of our world, from quantum physics to parapsychology, health, sociology, and philosophy, of